UK Crime Book Club. I am here with Roz Watkins to talk about The Red House, and I have loved this book. It's going to be tricky to talk about it, but go ahead, Roz. Try and describe this book with no spoilers.
Okay, hi. It's lovely to be here.
Lovely to have you.
Okay, so The Red House is it's from the point of view mainly of a young woman, Eve, who is now in her mid-20s. But 20 years ago, when she was 5, her brother murdered her mother and father, and her little baby brother died as well. And Eve actually witnessed this horrific thing. And so obviously that's like had a huge impact on her life. She now lives in hiding. And her brother, who committed the murder, he drove off after that, and he stole his parents' car, crashed into a tree, and he went into a coma and has been in a vegetative state ever since, being looked after by his grandmother. And Eve, who is, she's basically been trying to pretend that he doesn't exist. But at the beginning of the book, her grandmother is ill, and she thinks, well, basically she's dying. And she asks Eve to look after her brother when her grandmother dies. And that kicks off basically Eve questioning everything that she thought was true about what happened, and her feelings for her brother, etc. So it's that's what kicks it all off.
Well, just before we went live, I said to you, I love this book, and I've no idea how to talk to you about it. It's just, there is so much going on that we can't talk about. So first, let's say hellos. So hello to everyone who's watching. We've got Sarah and Tony and Mills and Kaz and Laura. Did I say Laura twice? So good I said you twice, Laura. Honestly, any of you would love this book. You really would. We've got a really tight-knit group of us who really, we know what each other likes, and they would all love this. I don't know where you begin with this. Let's start with The Red House. I mean, every time since I've read this, every time I've seen anything that says like Red House, it just automatically makes me think of the House of Blood now. You have literally ingrained yourself into my brain with your book. So it's a really clever way of looking at it, because it's kind of gruesome without being gruesome.
Yeah,
Does that make sense?
Yeah. So obviously the Red House, it it was where the murders took place. And it was partly called the Red House because of the blood from the murders, but it was already nicknamed the Red House even before that, because it was a red brick farmhouse. And also it's in the middle of a marsh, and the marsh, weirdly, all around it glows red anyway. Some people say it's from algae, and others say it's from the blood of the animals that used to be killed in the slaughterhouse by the house. So it's it was already a bit of a creepy place even before Joseph slaughtered his family there.
I'm laughing at Laura saying, yep, sounds like my kind of book. It was unfortunately timed of you say Joseph slaughtered his whole family there, and I laughed. Unfortunate timing, but Laura, you'll love it. I mean, you've not held back, but at the same time, it's not gruesome.
Yeah,
things happen off the page, and you have got all of these other things, like you said, the glowing, the marsh that's glowing red, and the former history of it. There's eels in the water. There's a lot going on there. You've added a lot of detail without it being really gory.
Yeah, I prefer the sort of creepy stuff to the gory stuff. So I kind of liked that there's a pond there, and that's where the blood from the slaughterhouse used to run into this pond, and there are eels in the pond. And I hadn't actually realised that eels were carnivorous initially.
I didn't till I read your book.
Yeah, useful information. So the eels lived off the blood, and they're still there actually.
Thriving on the blood is one of the lines.
Thriving, yeah, even though animals aren't slaughtered. So that's the slight mystery. The eels are still good. But yeah, I kind of like that slightly more creepy vibe with the marsh
Mm.
and the house that's sort of gradually sinking into the marsh, being engulfed by the marsh. There's an old manor house that's sort of more sunk into the marsh, that's sort of disused, and I just like that idea of all the secrets as well, kind of being lost in the marsh. So yeah, right, I don't really like the kind of just killing people sort of gore.
Mm.
Yeah.
Megan's watching from Australia. It's
Oh,
4
I
a.m. in Australia.
Wow.
That is some dedication, Megan. We do love it when you join us. When 4 a.m. There's a 4 a.m. in the morning. A.m. morning, right? There's two 4 o'clocks. No,
Yeah,
I'm not aware of the early one.
morning. Yeah, that's early.
That is very early. So I'm hoping all the kids are asleep, husband's asleep, and you're having a nice hot drink of something. So yeah, Megan does join us sometimes, and sometimes catches up afterwards, depending on, obviously it's quite a different time zone. So
Yeah.
tricky. So we should talk about your other books as well and give them a quick mention. So the Red House is book number 4, quite different from the first 3.
Yeah, so the first 3 are detective novels set in the Peak District again. But yeah, they're sort of policey. The main character is a detective. And they're a series, although they can all be read individually.
Mm.
And they're sort of similar in a way, and they've got kind of might it be, sort of creepy, might it be supernatural, might it not be supernatural kind of vibe going on. But obviously this one doesn't have the police element, which was a relief really, because it's quite hard trying to get that balance of making it reasonably realistic. But obviously most murder investigations now, they're mainly just carried out on looking at people's mobile phones and sort of number plate data. It's really techy, and no one wants to read about that. So you're sort of constantly trying to have that balance. But I was very fond of my detective, Meg Dalton, who's a sort of hopefully quite relatable character. She's not one of these kind of over it, glamorous detectives. She sort of bumbles around with cat hair on her clothes, and but she's clever. She's not glamorous, but she is clever, and she gets some really unpleasant things to investigate and gets herself in some real scrapes. So yeah, I enjoyed writing them.
But you've really enjoyed having the freedom of not having a fixed detective and police procedure, and this
Yeah.
has been something completely. Has it been quite liberating for you to write something like this?
It has really, because with the police, I mean, you can have them go a little bit rogue, but it starts to get ridiculous. I think if
Mm.
someone's still employed as a detective, and every time they kind of go off piste and do their own thing. So realistically, you've got to sort of be within the boundaries of a police investigation. And they always have radios and things so they can communicate even when there's no mobile phone signal, and the sort of things that just constrict what you can do. Whereas with a standalone, you can make your characters kind of, they can do bonkers things and put their lives at risk and just act a bit less sensible, I think, than a cop has to. So, and yeah, just the whole structure of the book, you can go wherever you like, really. So I did find that liberating.
It made me chuckle when you said that you can kind of get people to go off and do it. All I could think of was Mary's legs sticking out of this tree, going for wisteria. Do you want to explain what on earth I'm talking about to anyone who's not read it yet?
Yeah, so my main character, one of her things is she volunteers at an animal rescue. And there's a very opinionated cat at the animal rescue. Is based on my cat Ginge, which anyone who follows me on Twitter will have met Ginge. He was hashtag not my cat for ages, because he was not my cat. He was supposed to be a farm cat. He was supposed to live outside at the farm opposite, and I'd get in and I'd find him in my bed, and or he'd be following me around the yard, leaping onto my shoulder and just being an idiot. And after resisting for about a year, we sort of gave up and basically said to the farmer, look, this cat needs neutering and microchipping and vaccinating. And the farmer said, oh, he's your cat anyway. So acquired a cat that way. And Wisteria, the cat at the rescue centre, is based on Ginge. He's called Wisteria because he's a vigorous climber, which Ginge certainly is. So climbs up people. And the owner of the rescue centre is a sort of formidable, slightly older woman called Mary. And one day, Eve, the main character, finds Mary up the tree, trying to rescue.
I can picture it again now.
So, yeah, I quite enjoyed having a little bit of slightly light relief in all the darkness.
Yeah. I've been sharing pictures of cats on Twitter myself lately, but I don't have a cat.
Oh.
So all of them are hashtag not my cat.
Oh.
And there was one the other day, it just sat where I sit working here. There's a little wall at the side of me outside, and it was just sat staring at me.
Oh, he's here. He's turned up.
Oh,
Ginge, come on.
I do seem to be the cat lady lately, so maybe it's me.
Oh. Have any of them actually moved in with you yet, though?
No, I wouldn't. Where we live, it's the middle of a housing estate, so there's all of the cats are very well looked after.
Yeah.
They just seem to like me this week. Next week it'll be somebody else.
Oh, they're funny.
I did write down the thing that the dedication. Sorry, it was dedication I couldn't think of. To Magnum and Ginge, the cats who helpfully demonstrate the charming manipulative personality type in action every day, and I thought that was genius.
They really do. So yeah, here he is. He heard his name. The other one, Magnum's a little bit more shy, the black one, but he has actually been quite vocal. I've been doing a few of these sort of online things, and every now and then he turns up and shouts at me when I'm trying to record something, which is not great. But yeah, Ginger's quite happy to turn up and say hi.
We always say, and no offence to any parents watching, because I am one as well, my kids would never come on camera. They will hide out of the way, all four of them, quite happily. But we always say cats and dogs and animals, the members love it when an animal turns up. Yeah. People's kids in the background, it can be quite funny when they walk in, realise that they're on camera, and then slowly sneak out like we can't see them. It's really funny. Yeah. I do quite like that. Megan said it's the school holidays, so two of the kids are up and about at 4 a.m. Oh, bless you. That is not no, my kids were quite good sleepers generally, so I could tell some stories, but I won't because they'd kill me. But generally, they did okay at sleeping. One of the things that I really thought about, and I have written down the actual term in case I forgot what it was called. So, prosopagnosia. Have I pronounced that properly?
I think so. Yeah.
So, do you want to talk a little bit about what that is and why? Well, not why you wanted to use it, because it's a more there's more people with the condition than I thought there were.
Yeah.
Well, I have heard of it, and we've all heard of face blindness.
Yeah.
But it's an interesting one to use in a story. I've only ever seen it used once before, I think.
Yeah, I don't know where I was reading about it, because I'd sort of heard of face blindness, and I just thought it would be people that weren't very good at recognising faces. And I think we can all feel get a bit confused sometimes when you see people out of context or whatever. Yeah. But then I started researching it more, and I discovered there were people at the absolute extreme end of this who literally don't recognise faces at all, so they don't even recognise their own family. And the best description I read quite a few memoirs from people. Someone who said it's like if you look at a load of stones on a beach, when you pick them up, you can see they are all different. They're not identical at all. They've all got different features. If someone showed you one of those stones and then you went off and you came back and you looked at all the stones on the beach, you wouldn't be able to pick out the one that you'd just been shown earlier, because your brain isn't interested in the features of stones. So you've not got this special bit of your brain for stones, whereas with faces we have. And when you start thinking about it, it's absolutely remarkable what we can do with faces. But some people, including my main character, lack that part of the brain, or for want of a better way of describing it, they just don't recognise faces, so they have to do it on sort of hair and glasses and clothes, and analysing people's the way they walk and smell and voices and all these other things, but they just don't recognise faces. And I thought this was really interesting. And so, yeah, I gave my main character this, which makes her even more isolated than she would be. She's already living sort of in hiding because she doesn't want to be recognised as the sister of the murderer. But on top of that, she feels really vulnerable because imagine how much someone could exploit that. You don't even know if you know someone or not when you meet them. So I just thought it was quite an interesting condition, really, to use.
Yeah, I completely agree, and that that added level of vulnerability to Eve really does add to the whole sense of the story. She's a vulnerable woman, and she's had this whole life that's just been her trying to keep away from people and stop being this weird kid, and then as an adult trying to reinvent herself, but knowing she still sees herself as odd, but in the world that she's kind of found herself in, with her job in the bookshop and volunteering with the animals, and being alongside Mary, who's also maybe written as a little bit of I don't want to say oddball, because it sounds like I'm saying that in a bad way, but the oddballs are the best people ever.
Yeah.
Nobody who's normal. I've not got anyone who's completely normal in my life. She says insulting everyone she's ever met. But I think that's a good thing. You want people who are very much themselves and really not bothered about it.
Yeah, that Mary's definitely like that. She's quite an unusual character, definitely. Yeah,
definitely. I adored Mary. I want to talk. Do I want to talk about this character? Yeah, let's talk a little bit about Peggy. So, really lovely grandmother, really supportive of Eve, and just another way that you throw vulnerability in, because she's looking after Joseph. So, Eve wants to see Granny Peggy. She doesn't want to see Joseph. She's got this complicated relationship with her brother who killed her family. This is she has kind of a thing where when she's younger, she'll go and sit and talk to him because he's in, is the correct terminology permanent vegetative state? Have I remembered that right?
yeah, but they tend to say persistent.
Okay, persistent. I knew I got something wrong.
Well, I think they have in the past said permanent more, but they've now realised that people do sort of come out of it, or may not be, or may have some consciousness. So it's not as clear cut as you might think. When you say someone's in a vegetative state, you sort of picture a vegetable, and in fact, they tend now not to even use the word vegetative because it's it's not very flattering, and a lot of these people do have some consciousness. So
yeah. So you want
scary.
to be careful about the conversations that are being held around them, because just assuming that somebody can't hear you it's not enough, is it?
No, I mean, I think they're getting much better now about doing sort of brain scans, but that was one of the triggers for thinking of this book. The idea of this book really was, I read some research where they were doing sort of functional MRI scanning of people's brains who they thought were in a vegetative state or persistently unconscious. And quite a few of them were actually conscious, which I just thought was so horrifying. The thought that you could be lying there and no one even knows that you're conscious, and you can't even blink one eyelid. You just cannot communicate at all, but you are conscious.
Yeah.
And that just sort of got me thinking about you know, when you're a writer, you'll take something like that and then start thinking, what could make it even worse? What you'd committed a hideous crime and you couldn't explain yourself, or you've been accused of something and you're just lying there and you can't do anything about any of it. So yeah, I thought that was pretty grim.
Yeah, there's definitely an element of this is a nice story. How can I ruin this? This is a bad story. How can I embellish on that?
Make it even more horrific.
But it works really well. But going back to Eve and Peggy, what a lovely relationship they've got. They're really close. And it made me really emotional. There was a scene a couple of times where Eve and Peggy are dancing in the kitchen. And that was me and my granddad. He used to kind of, it was really, yeah, I can feel myself building up with it again. It was just a really lovely thing, their relationship, because that's going to resonate with so many people. And he had this little song he'd sing, which I'm not going to sing, and just twirl me around in the kitchen. And up until, up until the end of his life, he would do that. And at the very end, he couldn't move his legs, so he'd stand up and he'd move his arms. So
Oh.
it was really lovely to kind of read that grandmother, granddaughter, that little moment. I felt like it was a really lovely moment between them. There's all this other stuff going on, and Joseph's in the other room, but they have this moment together, and then they're in the same room as Joseph and dancing away. And, that inner strength from her grandmother was just, there was another line that I wrote down actually. Page 79, for anyone who gets, once you start reading, you get to that bit. I'm very pathetic compared to these formidable women. And that was about the cat in the tree again, and Mary being up the tree when Eve doesn't think she should be up the tree and thinks she's going to fall out of the tree. And I just thought, yeah, that just made me think of my nana. It's kind of, you've really evoked some memories, is my point.
Oh, thank you. Well,
It's
that was
really beautiful.
my grandmother. Well, I was pretty close to both grandmothers, but the one that was the formidable, they were both formidable women, really. But the one I was thinking of was I had one grandmother who managed to break her arm when she was about 95. And my mum said, "Look, how did you do that? What were you doing?" And she said, "Oh, I was picking apples. I was up a ladder on the apple tree." 95? Like,
Good
seriously?
for her.
So
I'm
yeah.
barely allowed to stand on a chair now.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure I would do that now. So that's why I quite like the contrast of,
Yeah.
Eve recognizing that even though she's in her 20s, she's sort of in some ways, a lot less brave than these older women.
It's funny, isn't it? Occasionally, I really surprise myself and do something, and I think I can't believe I did that.
Yeah.
But generally, that involves some fear for somebody else.
Yeah.
Usually, my long-suffering husband. I'm not allowed to climb. I've just spotted that my granddad's hat is there. I always say it's not always on show. It depends how the camera's angled, but I don't know. Maybe it is usually on show. I'm suddenly very aware that Grandad Tom's hat is right above my head, which is nice. Keep him in my office. Do you have anything like that you keep around? Any kind of, maybe not from a grandparent, but something that you've always had around you in your office?
I tend to have this little creature. Which, if you can see.
Nice, okay.
Yeah. So he was a present from my ex, who I'm still on very good terms with. And he just kind of, I can sense him criticizing me if I'm not getting on with things. Like,
I think I need a gargoyle. I need somebody watching me.
yeah, he just folds his arms and he's like, come on, get on with it, stop procrastinating. So yeah, I mean, although I moved in quite a few months ago now, I'm not very organized because I'm having my house basically doing work on it, and everything's total chaos at the moment. So I'm out of it. I'm mostly working sort of out of the house at the moment, like in kind of coffee shops and on beaches. So people aren't going to feel sorry for me. But the house is.
So I kind of do though, because if you're used to writing in a quiet environment, how are you finding it not doing that?
Yeah, it's quite tricky. I mean, there are certain phases of writing where I feel like I need a big whiteboard, like sort of pace up and down and try and plot things out on a whiteboard. And I haven't got that at the moment. I haven't got a whiteboard, and I'm out of the house mainly. So yeah, it's I'm not writing the current book very fast at all. It's yeah, it's quite. I've just moved house and been through a lot of period of change, so it's been quite tricky actually writing the next one, but I'll get there.
Of course you will. And is that what you were working on now, the next book?
Yeah,
So is it another standalone? Is it another detective?
it's another standalone. So it's sort of to be kind of decided to an extent with my editor, but it's a bit different. It's set in the near future. So it's almost a little bit Black Mirror, if anyone reads that, watches that rather. So yes, it's in a sort of near future UK where basically everyone's monitored by a wristbands that they wear, sort of AI wristbands, and violence of any form is not tolerated. And if you're violent, you basically get sent off to a retreat on an island, and you get your brain reprogrammed so that you're not violent anymore. So it's quite a different society. It's a sort of thing where it has its good points, and it's been quite interesting thinking about, what price would you pay to eliminate violence from society, and would you give up your freedom to do that? And so it's been quite interesting, but it's going very slowly at the moment.
Well, I just gulped while you were explaining that. So that's I'm really intrigued to see where you go with that.
Yeah, so
because the kind of the obvious answer would be, well, of course, to give up anything to end violence. But I feel like you're going to make it a tricky decision.
I mean, in the world of the book, it has been voted in, the act, as they call it, but obviously the implications of it are quite severe, because if you are violent, you end up having to have your brain changed. So, are you still you? The way they pitched it was, it's like you become your best self, the person you would have been if you'd had a perfect upbringing and bad stuff hadn't happened to you. But it gets a bit more sinister than that, as you can imagine.
I can imagine after reading The Red House. I can imagine just how sinister you are going to make it. So Megan's had to go, and she's hoping to read The Red House soon.
Okay.
Good luck with the kids in the holidays. Megan's kids are younger than my kids, so mine will be fairly happy, and I'm going to jinx myself, and easy to manage in the holidays. Why did I say that?
How
What
old
a
are
daft
yours?
thing to say. I've got I have 2 adults, an almost adult, and a younger teenager.
Okay.
So yeah, keep us busy. Definitely keep us busy. It's really funny how the relationships change though as they get older. So yeah, interesting. I think I'm going to explore some of it through writing, but we'll see. I mean, there's a thing about using writing in a cathartic way, but then when does it get too personal, and when is it? How much of your real life can you use in a book without it becoming kind of intrusive to yourself and other people? So, do you think you've used any of your real experiences so far? I'm not asking if you've murdered a family, but are there any little hints of you in the books?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Yes, I mean, Meg, the detective, that was in the first 3 books, there's a lot of me in her, really, because I guess when you're writing your first book, it's sort of the default really where you go, isn't it? That your main character is quite like you. That makes it easier to write. And that first book, I kind of never really imagined it would get published. It was sort of more just a hobby, really. When I was writing it. So there's quite a lot in there that is quite personal. Meg's got a grandmother as well, and it sort of explores issues around assisted dying, and that was something that was pretty personal for me, because my nana, but she was 101 and wanted to die and couldn't, and is like at 101. She'd had a decent innings, and so I had some quite strong feelings about that, and that came out in the first two books. And then the third book, so it's not so much personal sort of anecdotes or anything, but just feelings about stuff. I've got very strong feelings about factory farming, and that came out strongly in my third book. So some of my own little stories creep in there, but mainly it's the sort of things that I feel strongly about, or feel angry about, that they were kind of in the first few books. And then, but you have to dig deeper, I think, as time goes on, because you've vented, you've explored your kind of obvious interest, you've vented your obvious things that you want to vent, and you get to a point where you're having to dig deeper to find stuff that interests you, which is sort of where I'm at now.
Is that really difficult to do? Look for another aspect of yourself that maybe isn't as prevalent. So obviously the things that you've covered so far were things that were literally on the surface, part of your life. But now you're looking for other things, and are you learning things about yourself?
Yeah, I think so, because you're always looking for that it's the emotional stuff that that the characters are going through. I think it only rings true if there's an element of it that you've been through. Sort of not, you're obviously always amplifying everything with the characters, but we've all had issues with our families. Just probably, hopefully, none of us have had issues like Eve in the Red House has. But we've all, we all have conflicts with sort of partners and families, and I think you are mining those things. So some of my experiences with relationships, some of the ones that have not worked out so well, definitely been fed into the Red House. But it's also, you have to sort of feel like you want to be a bit careful as well, because you don't want ex-boyfriends recognizing themselves in there. And
the Rex is for a reason. We shall not celebrate them.
I mean, my ex, my most recent ex, who I'm actually on really good terms with, he used to accuse that there's a really horrible character in my first three, horrible cop called Craig, and he always used to say, Craig's based on me. No, he's not. He wasn't actually. He wasn't. But yeah, so you do get that. But normally people don't see themselves in the bad characters, because nobody wants to recognise. I mean, there are some notable exceptions to that. I have known people who've been accused of sort of using other people's lives, and which is a bit awkward. But in fact, someone got in touch with me on Facebook and accused me of stealing her life and putting it in my first book, which was really, really odd. Because
was it somebody you knew, at least?
She was a friend of a friend, so I sort of was connected to her by her interests, really. And I think that's why we had a bit in common, that she sort of found in the book, but it was very tenuous, the stuff she came out with, and she was convinced that I'd written this book based on her life. So that was odd.
I always think that if it's kind of, it goes along with the universal truth thing. So if you told me something now and I used that in a book, I wouldn't feel comfortable with that. However, if three people tell me stories that have a similar thread to them, a similar feeling, even if all of the actual incidents are different, that there's that universal thread, then I kind of think, well, this is a universal thing. So actually, I'm not writing about you. I'd be writing about, lots of people. I always think that's my rule of three. If there's three people, then it's kind of fair game, depending on what it is.
Yeah.
I always think. But there are going to be people who think they are written about when you're thinking, no, I have no interest in you in your life. No, not one bit. One of the things that I did pick up with the Red House is I really like stories where it's reality. It could be anyone's day-to-day existence, but then there's these things that happen in it, almost like pinpricks of horror in a normal mundane existence. Just an everyday life, and these things happen. And I thought that was balanced so beautifully. I think the way that you've just kind of made this feel like, oh my God, this could be any of us. This woman's going about her life after all these awful things, and oh, what are you doing to her now? What is going to happen to this woman now? But her life feels very real.
Oh, thank you.
I thought that must have taken a lot of your brain power to just kind of sit and make sure that just flowed so well.
Yeah, she was difficult to write, really, because she was such a a character that had such a bizarre life. And she got this face blindness thing, which no matter how many memoirs you read and how much you research it, it's really difficult to get your head around, I think, what that would feel like. So I tried to give her some stuff that I could really relate to. So the volunteering at the Animal Rescue Centre and working in a bookshop were both things that I kind of could envisage myself doing or have done.
Yeah.
And the relationship with the grandmother as well, it felt like something quite normal and real. So yeah, I deliberately sort of gave her things in her life which were normal, alongside all the absolute horror which she was really trying to leave behind, until it forced its way back into her life again.
And she's a really good person with a really good heart, who wants to do what she thinks are the right things, even when it really isn't that simple. You have not given Eve an easy time of it at all.
No, I like those things. There's a screenwriter who I really admire, and he says something like, you don't just make it hard for the character to do the thing, make it hard for them to want to do the thing. So, don't just kind of make their lives difficult, but give them situations where they've got moral dilemmas and they need to do something, but they don't want to for various reasons, or they just, like in this case, there's scenarios involving her brother where it's just not clear what the right thing is to do from a moral perspective. And I really kind of, it was interesting thinking about that, and also putting her through the mill, making her make decisions.
Excuse me. Yeah, absolutely. You have put Eve through the mill completely. You really have. How much? I mean, we tend to not ask. Sorry, Sarah. I'll ask you a question in a sec. We tend to not always get into planner versus pantser, because I know it's something that authors talk about a lot. This feels like you really knew your subject, you had some ideas, and I'm wondering how much of it you knew before you put pen to paper or fingers to keyboard, as it may be.
I sort of knew the main stuff to do with the family annihilation, and I kind of already had an idea in my head about the ending, the sort of twist at the end. But all the stuff in the
This is
middle.
me saying nothing.
Yeah. Yeah. But I suppose there's two twists, and one of them was clear, and the one right at the end that wasn't less clear. But all the reasons, I kind of went through. This book went through so many edits, actually.
Which is why it's so blooming realistic. Which is why it's been handled so well, because you have thought about, as a team, you thought about every detail. And none of it is pushing things. Not one point did I go, oh, that had never happened, because I wasn't even thinking about looking for twists. I was just reading. I was just so involved with what was happening. I didn't really care what was coming. I just wanted to find out what was coming. I wasn't trying to guess where you'd gone with it at all. I was just reading. I just really wanted to read what was coming.
Well, thank you. I mean, it was probably edited more than your average book, because my editor was on maternity leave, my main editor. So I ended up having two different interim editors, and they both had views. So I got kind of quite extensive thoughts from one, and then I rewrote the book really and sent it back, and then she'd then left and I had a different one and she had thoughts as well. And then my original editor came back, and luckily she didn't have so much because it had already been through two major edits, but it had lots of eyes on it. And I also took it through a lot of iterations, and sort of there are whole characters that were there that are not there anymore, and quite major characters got knocked out late.
Now that's intriguing.
Yeah.
Are you going to save some of those to use as in characters, but maybe obviously different story? Have you kept any of them thinking I can use you in that one?
I've got some. There's one particular that I like, which is sort of slightly strange 10-year-old girl who I rather liked, but somehow ended up not being required anymore. So yeah, she might make another appearance. Eve also had a cousin at one point.
Right, okay.
But he didn't. Sometimes characters just don't jump off the page at you.
Yeah.
And he didn't, and some of the plot work that he was doing got taken over by the character Serena.
Right, okay.
So
I like Serena.
Yeah, sometimes you realise you only need one character, and whereas you've got two. And you need a certain number of characters, obviously, but I like to try and keep it to the sort of minimum that the story needs, because I get confused in books when there are too many characters. So try not to give them the similar names as well, because that always confuses me. I kind of have a list with the letters of the alphabet and make sure that none of them are called the same. They start with the same initial.
We'll get to Sarah's question now. How do you keep notes? Do you use your phone or a notebook? Are you a note keeper? And are you finding you write more notes now that you're spending time out of the house to write?
Yeah,
a lot of things down.
I've always liked a handwritten note, and I quite like different coloured pens as well. So I do quite often move around the house and sit in different places and just have a notepad and just think. So like today, when I went out of the house while they were basically ripping my kitchen out, I just took my notebook. I didn't take my laptop with me. So yeah, I do quite a bit in notebooks, just trying to work out plots and characters and things. And then so mainly that. I don't tend to dictate myself notes on the phone or anything. I will sometimes send myself messages just if I'm like out and about without a notebook and not supposed to be writing. I just have a thought. I'll just send myself a text message or something just to remind me. But yeah, mainly notebooks and coloured pens.
I do that with if I'm reading an article on Facebook, for example, I will, and I think I've not got time to get into this now. I send it to myself in Messenger. I must have 2 years worth of messages that I've not looked back at yet. Or I'll write an idea down and send it to myself and think, right, that'd be really good. No idea if it's any good. I've never looked back.
Oh, you should go through probably gold in there.
Let's hope so, when I ever actually get to it. Can you imagine? I'm just going to look back and think, what did I try and write at 3 a.m. to myself? That doesn't make any
ideas,
sense.
That you have at 3 a.m.
Indecipherable.
Yeah, they always seem so good at the time, don't they? And then you look back and it's like, maybe not.
Had a dream last week and I woke up thinking, oh, that was really good. That was a really good idea. Whether it actually was or not, I have no clue because I don't know what it was. We should talk a little bit. Do you have a publication date or a rough date for book 5?
Not really. It's probably going to be the year after next, though, unfortunately. due to my general slowness of writing it. So,
I think you can give yourself a break. You are renovating a house.
yeah, I'm trying to just not be too hard on myself.
Yeah.
It's been a kind of busy year and lots going on. I'm starting a job at the university in September as well, which should be quite interesting. Sort of, that's 2.5 days a week, so that's quite time consuming as well.
Yeah.
But so yeah, probably spring or summer, whatever the year after next is. 25, God.
25. Oh my word. Yeah.
Oh,
I had to think too hard about that then.
no, unless we've all been taken over by AI by then. No one's writing books anymore. It seems to be a possibility at the moment.
I've been sent a couple of excerpts of things that people have kind of played about with, and I've told them off and said, stop helping the algorithms, stop using the technology. You don't want it to harm the writers, then don't use it. I know there are other industries where it's been used quite successfully for years, but I can't imagine humans not being the ones that write the books.
I think it'll be quite annoying if they just sort of steal all our books, feed them into it, and then, yeah, sort of use that.
Yeah.
So, but I guess they will, unfortunately. Yeah.
Yeah, very much hope not. Really not. I just don't see how any machine is ever going to have the nuance of the understanding of we've talked about using your experiences in stories. A machine's not going to have the experiences. It can be fed in. How realistic that will be, I don't know, but I'm gonna remember the scene again. I know I've already mentioned it, but the scene where Eve and Peggy, are dancing, that it's like it fires so many different feelings, and you remember experiences, things that you've forgotten about, and I just don't see how that can be done without another person who's experienced those writing it. I just can't see it.
I hope not. I mean, I guess eventually they'll learn the same way we do, and they'll read every book ever written, and they'll, I guess, learn emotions and everything that way. But I hope it's going to be a little while before that happens.
Yeah, a really, really long time. We could use one of the creators. Well, the creators. We won't get into. I was just about to go into the politics of it, but I'm absolutely not doing that because we don't do that here. And let's not let me cause an argument. Are there any topics that you either really have a burning desire to cover or really just have no interest in covering?
I mean, I am interested in all this sort of where we're going in the near future with technology.
Yeah. And I'm looking forward to reading your take on AI in book 5. Very much.
Yeah, it is interesting and scary. And I'm kind of interested in exploring that. And really, I suppose it's all sort of tied in with what you've just been saying, really, like what actually makes us human. And if we start messing around with our brains to make us better, is that a good thing or a bad thing? And if you look at the sort of things that humans have done to the planet, we don't really look like a great thing. You can sort of imagine if AI does become a lot more intelligent than us, which it will eventually, just viewing us as kind of vermin, basically, the way we view locusts or something.
Yeah.
So I'm quite intrigued by those sorts of thoughts. And yeah, still some of the stuff I've covered in earlier books, I still feel strongly about some of the sort of feminist stuff and animal rights, and quite a few things. I don't think I'm going to run out of things that I want to discuss, hopefully.
I think we've all got a rant in us about one thing or another. And I think it's a good way sometimes of getting started. Blank page, rants.
Yeah.
And see where it takes you.
If you're emotional about something, it's a really good. Somebody said that to me with public speaking. I went on this course where we had to do this little talk, and someone said, oh, just think of something that makes you really angry and have a rant about it. And I'm like, right, chicken farming. So I just stood up and did this massive rant about factory farm chickens. And yeah, I wasn't nervous at all because I was just so fired up by these poor chickens. And yeah, it was quite good advice. And it's the same, with the books. It helps to have something fueling it, I think, that you're either angry about or passionate about or just fascinated by. You need something like, oh, here's the other cat. I've got another cat now.
Oh, let's see. Everyone be quiet, don't scare him away. Is he not coming up?
He's not coming up, the black one. That, come on. Are you coming? No, he's not coming up. Just wants me to feed him. It's not his food time, but it's worth a try.
Absolutely worth a try. So that's Magnum.
Yeah.
I did cheat. I have got Magnum and Ginge written down in case I forgot the names. I did remember, but then I thought, am I remembering properly?
No.
And I did. So yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you to everyone who's joined us tonight. I genuinely love this book. I think it's brilliant. There are so many things to love about it, and it's really clever and really beautiful, and really gets you gets you going with it. And I wasn't really, like I said, I wasn't really thinking about what might happen. I was just enjoying the moments, and it was really, I can't recommend it highly enough. I think it's fantastic.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Thank you for joining us, Roz. It's been really lovely to talk to you, and I hope you come back for your next book.
Thank you. It's been really lovely to talk to you as well. Thanks ever so much for inviting me on.
Do you want to give everyone a quick reminder? We can see the red house in the background behind you, but do you want to tell everyone just a little bit about it? And we can drop a link into the group as well.
Yeah, so it's the story of Eve, who 20 years ago, her teenage brother murdered her mother and father and her baby brother. And then he's been in a vegetative state ever since then, being looked after by his grandmother. When the story starts, grandmother is dying and wants Eve to look after her brother who killed her family. And this starts Eve wondering whether she actually saw him kill her family, but she starts to wonder whether she's only 5. Maybe she got it wrong. Maybe something else happened, and it sort of kicks off a big investigation and lots of fun for Eve in a not very
for the
way.
readers. I've just dropped a link in, so anyone can copy and paste the link, or maybe click on it. I'm not really sure that. Oh no, it has come up with the cover of the Red House, and the Red House, the twisty and unputdownable new crime thriller for 2023, which it absolutely is. I've made so many notes that we've not even got to because it was so that I was gone really fast. The final note I made was I feel so swept along by this book. It's a perfect example of just enough of our reality blended with the story.
Oh, thank you.
I know we've touched on that, but brilliant book. Thank you so much, Roz. I look forward to next time.
Thank you. Thanks.